Love your neighbor. And by local, I'm going to be at the 10 North Shore Starbucks tonight at 7 o'clock with a coffee steaming next to my laptop computer. And I'm going to be working on some tedious, boring law reporting. But you can give me a break. Give me a break and join me for a chat at 7 o'clock. I'll be there for a couple hours, and we'll be chatting up a storm. Now, the real event, the real news of the evening is not me, of course. It is the Gridiron Gang Show with Sam Jordan and Keon Rose and Nick LaFew. We'll be broadcasting live tonight and every Thursday from 10 North Shore on the Starbucks restaurant, the coffee shop. And so you can stop by, you can participate in the discussions, you can ask questions, you can enjoy specials from the Starbucks at 10 North Shore every Thursday evening. And I'll be there, David Toulis. Maybe I'm just decoration, but I hope maybe you and I can get some work done. So come on by and bring your wife. I invited Jeanette to come, but she's doing something else. She's a very busy woman, columnist, writer, bibliophile, and the like. We're talking with Curtis Caine, who is a retired physician enjoying his retirement here, and is a man who makes from an irascible and crusty constitutionalist position the case for local economy and the free market. He doesn't really know that, but he is in fact making that argument. If you argue for constitutional government, you are arguing for a limited state and respect, regard, and honor for the free market for every individual man and woman to do what God ordains and calls that person to do without genuflection, without having to bow down and scrape and kiss boots of the good people who control licensing apparatuses, tax authorities, regulatory agencies, and welfare administrations. And he is a man who participated not for decades in a system which, like the Egyptian residency of the children of Israel, slowly drifted into a servitude in the hot sun, building Ramses' great cities, which is what they did with the crack of the whip and insufficient material for making the bricks for the Pharaoh's treasure cities. Right now, we're making a treasure city today in the medical profession, though Dr. Caine, by God's grace, and I'd say some courage, private courage, maintained a private practice, a non-governmental, non-cooperative, and non-compliant medical practice. Dr. Caine, where did you practice really? Where was it most of your career? In Mississippi?
I practiced in Jackson, Mississippi for 60 years.
60 years in Jackson, Mississippi. And did you prosper in the field of medicine, or were you always poor?
Oh, I was never poor, but I was never rich. Most I ever made, the most that I ever took home, my net was for $90,000, when many of my colleagues were taking home $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000.
Were they taking those large? Were they taking those big figures home? Let me ask you: Were they taking those large figures, the $500,000, the $400,000, home because they were involved in the government welfare scheme? Is that why they got rich?
That's correct. They got highly rewarded for their violating the Constitution and for them becoming subject to the then illegal, unconstitutional Medicare and Medicaid.
Do they regret having given themselves over wholly to whoredom?
Well, 30 years later, after I had informed them that if they took the bait and became enslaved by central government and third parties, that they would regret it. And I was booed. I was called a heretic. But 30 years later, they put their arms around me and said, "Curtis, we should have listened to you 30 years ago."
But they didn't
They were not willing to break loose and be free again. They were so used to servitude that they just couldn't give it up.
Right. It's too complicated. The tendrils of government intervention in their businesses is at every point. There's no point that they could separate apart from pain and agony. So there are so many pain points in that relationship with the good people in Washington that it's impractical for them, especially since they're in their 50s now or in their 60s, to even dream of separating.
Mr. Tullis, I'm aware of 2 other physicians here in Chattanooga who have cash practices and who do not have anything to do with third parties.
Who are they?
Yes. I have not asked them if I could divulge who they are.
Well, listen, it's to their advantage to have their names out there because those are in the vanguard of liberty and freedom, I would think.
Yes, that's correct. Well, I spoke a few minutes ago with one of them, and he has a walk-in surgical practice near the grocery store downtown.
I know who that is. That's Dr. David Redd. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yes, sir. One of 2. When he started his quick surge business, a walk-in clinic for certain, not a limited number of surgeries, he made the front page of the paper, and it's a cash business. And his prices are really amazing. There's no insurance, and these are minor like skin flaps and warts and things like that he handles. And but Dr. Caine, there are really more than just him and the other physician you mentioned. I think there may be 4 or 5. I think even the lady who's Danielle Mitchell running for the federal legislature is a cash doctor as well. Though she is socialist in her political leanings and a progressive, she has the smarts to have her sports institute on a cash basis.
You had mentioned and asked the question how our discussion of perquisites, of entitlements, had to do with King David in Scripture. Well, you know, the king was, for any thing that he said, was an order. And he ordered that Bathsheba would obey him and come to his palace. And he presumptuously acquired power over her because she just was obeying the king. And of course, what all happened, he not only coveted Bathsheba and committed adultery with her, but he ordered General Joab to have her husband killed, her husband Uriah killed. And you had mentioned, how in the world does that have to do with what's going on today? Very pertinent. The physician subjects of the federal government do what they are told. When they are told that they must abort a woman, their license will be revoked. They will lose their staff, their hospital staff privileges, because the king, the rulers of our United States of America in D.C., tell them that's what they've got to do. And if they want bread on the table, they have to do it. So it's very pertinent.
So you and your wife, Mrs. Caine, you're a widower. She is deceased. Is that right?
Yes.
You ran your family, had your children, and ran your practice in Jackson, Mississippi, without taking the federal money. And let me ask: did you also abstain from insurance payments? Was that part of your business model?
I got, Mr. Tillis, when I got a check from an insurance company, I sent it back, and the accompanying letter would say, "You know, I've looked over my books, and I don't see that I had a patient named Aetna, and therefore I received a check from you, and I've never given you a service, and so you don't owe me any money.
Well, I guess your model of medicine, Dr. Caine, is intensely personal, and I think that all the physicians that you warned to not enter into Medicare have given up on the idea of having a personal practice, and yet there are these cash practitioners in Chattanooga, and I think Danielle Mitchell, running for Congress, is among them. David Red at Quick Search. There are several chiropractors. I've interviewed 2 or 3 of them. They like the fact that there's not a third party giving orders as to what is to be done and what is not to be done. So their prices are extraordinarily low compared to the inflated prices of
yes, sir. That's
services.
Correct, because the overhead is reduced to almost nothing when you in a situation that you do not have to comply with all of the paperwork and all of the electronic record keeping, and a department in the office that does nothing but fill out insurance papers and beg insurance companies to pay the clinic. So much of the time I get a bill when I go visit a doctor today. He is in a clinic, and I get a bill from the clinic, and I'm supposed to write a check to the clinic so that the doctor is a non-person. He's subject to and part of a nameless, a physician nameless operation. When I make a point that when I get one of those bills, I make my check out in the doctor's name. And I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to make the check out in the clinic's name, in the
corporation.
In the legal name of the corporation.
Right, because the doctor has converted himself not just into a servant of the government, but also in the interest of efficiencies and modernity to the corporation, the clinic corporation, which arranges itself to have doctors as their subject. So the doctor is now subject all around, I guess, except to the patient, right? He's not subject to the patient, but he's subject to rules and payment schemes and obligations by these other parties.
That's correct. And that is not professional. These fellows, these physicians, these colleagues of mine call themselves in private practice. They are not. Private practice, the practice of private medicine, involves just 2 people, a sick person and the physician of his choice. And everyone else in the equation is an interloper. He's a Pinocchio.
And the point you're making about the private relationship, I think, is really remarkable. And we're not going to have time to get into it right now, but in that relationship, it's one human being, one individual person, and another. There's no corporate capacity. The patient's not a corporation, the doctor's not a corporation, or not employed by a corporation. It really is like skin to skin, in the sense of 2 human beings having a transaction that is private. So private dealings are really private. They're not subject to regulation. They're not subject to taxation. They're, I would say, not subject even to licensure. But
they're not subject to having their personal history, their personal medical history, their personal activities revealed. As it is now, all of that is in the record, which is in the doctor's office, and any federal official can walk in and can read the private record of a patient, to where it is no longer a one-on-one relationship where any information there is private.
Dr. Caine, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Caine is a retired physician who fought the political legal establishment in Mississippi and refused to take part in Medicare, ran his whole practice for 60 years in Jackson, retired here in Chattanooga, widower, and it maintains the independent spirit of America that I would suggest you, my listener, might want to emulate in your line of work. This is David Toulis, and we're at 92.7 FM, and wanted to make sure you know that I'm going to be available as a much lesser light tonight. There's an event at 10 North on the North Shore. That's 10 North, the Starbucks on North Shore. The Gridiron Gang Show. Those are the heroes tonight from 7 to 9. And the heroes, of course, are Keon Rose, our sports guy, Nick LaFew, Sam Jordan here at the board at the radio station. And we're going to be talking about, or they, the estimable ones, are going to be talking about high school football. And what am I going to be doing? Well, I'm going to be talking with you, my listener. If you want to talk with me tonight, at 10 North Shore about law, about your legal problems, about your troubles, about free enterprise or anything else, I'm going to be there, and I'm in all ears for you. But if you're not there, well, I'll be doing some tedious, boring legal writing of one kind or another. So save me from my obligations. I'm writing a big write-up on Red Bank Police Manual. I've gone through that in detail. And if I have a couple hours straight, I might be able to knock that thing out. But save me the trouble tonight at 10 North. That's 10 North at the Starbucks on the North Shore, and the big event of the day or of the evening is the Gridiron Gang Show. Now, make sure you go to our sponsor here on the David Toulis Show. It's Nuganomics.com. There's a story that's got some bad language in there, but I've X'd out some of the letters, and the F word, the F bomb, is in there multiple times. It is the story about a phony police officer, and what the value of the story to me is that it highlights the difference between the limits on a real officer and the no limits that this man, an apparent bounty hunter, has on his activity. He aimed a weapon at Corey Javon Craddock, 18. He demanded IDs. In real life, a cop can't ask IDs from just anybody. He just can't. It's forbidden. It's forbidden. He has authority to ask IDs only when he's arresting somebody. That's it. There has to be a preceding claim or a preceding charge before he can demand that you give or produce an ID. That's in the statute. If you go to my story today at Nuganomics.com, you can read that, and I cite the statute that shows that limit. It is a real limit. This intruder, his name is said to be Kevin Robertson, who's a bounty hunter in the Chattanooga area. Don't know that. That's just from Corey Javon Craddock, and a similarity in some images of this man. There is a video of this home invasion. It's a home invasion, and you can see it on our Facebook page at the Great Censor FB, the Great Censor at Nooga Radio. And my name is David Toulis, and I'm going to be at the Starbucks tonight at 7. Do come by. Also the other things. The use of force was not according to the police manual. The lack of a warrant. Also, no cop can come into a house without a warrant, okay, or without permission. This pseudo cop, this fake cop, came in by consent. And why? Why on earth would these young men grant consent? Again, well, they believed his threat that he was going to knock the door down if they didn't open the door. That also, that's dynamic entry. That also not warranted on a fugitive hunt. Now, I don't know the rules for the city cops. Apparently, there was a discussion, some seeming discussion. David Toulis, Nooga Radio.
Man, talk about a packed show of information. Whoa.
All right. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Tired after that one. Good stuff. Social Security is voluntary. I hope everyone knows that. No one's compelled to get a Social Security number. Matter of fact, you don't even need it to get a bank account. It's for Social Security purposes only. It's an entitlement that you volunteer into. It's a federal enfranchisement, blatantly unconstitutional, but the courts won't rule that because we've been under occupation since Lincoln prevented the war to prevent Southern occupation or independence. So, okay, you too. And she agrees. You heard her say it. The other thing is the Supreme Court also ruled, if we're going to quote the court, that the only thing you are obligated to do is give your name if asked by a police officer. I think the court was wrong in even saying that because the First Amendment guarantees me my right to speak or not to speak. So the court said if a cop asks you, you have to give him your name, and that's it. I disagree with the court. However, I ain't the Supreme Court. If the court says you have to do that, then evidently I can understand Amendment 1. But once again, the court's occupied too. So we're under a lawless regime here in our republic. We have to understand that based on everything we do. We're under a state of lawlessness at the federal level.
This is David Toulis, and we've been talking with Mike. Mike, thanks for calling. Thanks so much, Mike. David Toulis. Meet me tonight for coffee at North Shore, 10 North Shore at the Starbucks. Let's talk over things that are going on in your life. I'd love to hear about you and meet you. It'll just be you and me, right? You're my listener, you and me.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Ottawa High School placed on lockdown after what SROs are calling a social media threat. This comes just one day after Dallas Bay was shut down for a bomb threat. Ottawa High's lockdown was lifted. Students were dismissed.